Hey friends, it's Jeff. I wanted to let you know that our next second Saturday gathering is coming up on March 14th, this Saturday, where we're going to continue this conversation focusing on the 4s and the 5s. These gatherings, these workshops have become one of my favorite spaces each month. They give us a chance to slow down, explore the Enneagram in a more personal, interactive way, and hear from people who are doing the work in real time. So if you want a place to reflect more deeply, ask questions, join the conversations, this is for you. You obviously do not have to be a 4 or a 5. You just need to be somebody interested in talking about the Enneagram. So you can sign up now at aroundthecircle.org. Again, next second Saturday is on March 14th. Focused on the 4s and 5s. We'd love to see you there, and may all good things be yours. Well, I appreciate you all. We're going to have a good time today. We're doing heart types today. I want to start with 2 illustrations that just have been kind of hitting me since we spoke last time, and this is going to set up our conversation. And most of our conversation, as you probably know, is going to be driven by you all. Want to really emphasize again that that's stuff that I've kind of been sitting with for many years. But this is the first time that I get a chance to crowdsource some of this. So especially for you heart types, or those of you who love and are connected to heart types, your input on this is really going to be valuable for me. So just many thanks. A big idea that we're going to be hitting, and it's the structure of our conversation, if you got a chance to see our conversation last time, is that part of the heart's message and moving to the high side, in my view, is moving away from the low side of our type and the movement toward excess. I think we generally, because we take in the world through our center kicks out a lot of emotions and interpretations that aren't necessarily our choosing. They filter into our system. Given our wiring, we push towards survival, but many of the negative, excessive sides of our type can do some damage to our inner life and to our soul. And so some of the really important work of Enneagram is what we're talking about today. It's moving against those natural patterns and kind of naming, how do I get out of the ruts that types like mine naturally fall into? So my view is that this starts with our fear. You can name a fear for each of the types, the things that we just naturally kind of just are averse to, the hazards we avoid. These move toward the traditional list of sins or passions. And in my language, I've been talking about this as a 45-pound weight that most of us carry. If you imagine having a 45-pound weight in one hand and you just carried it all day long, it would always kind of move you to one side. And I feel like that's how our fears work. My fear of being spoiled or doing things wrong, this moves me. It moves me in my heart, in my actions, in my thinking. It determines a whole lot of what I am inclined to become and desire. And it often, because it's a 45-pound weight, it moves me off center. It moves me out of balance. And sometimes because of that weight, I'm not able to realize my fullest, healthiest self. Now, it seems to me that when starting to talk about heart types, fears are worth naming, and what the fears move us toward avoiding. That primary move, this is what I fear, and then this is what I avoid. And then the manifestation for 2s of pride, for 3s of deceit, for 4s of envy. Really worth naming just how this movement takes place. And so I want to have this in mind. We're going to come back to this. This will be the primary discussion point when we hit 2s, 3s, and 4s. But when thinking about the weight that we hold, in my view, it looks something like this. Now, secondarily, there's an illustration that's been really important to me that I use all the time, at least in my own heart and mind. I don't know if you've heard it before, but there's a very famous basketball coach. For those of you who love sports ball, this will connect. If you don't love sports ball, go with me for a second. There's a very famous basketball coach who, on the first day of practice, he would have upper echelon athletes sitting in his first session as a coach, and he would pull out a sock. He would say, "This is a sock. When you place a sock on your foot, this is how the sock connects with the foot. This is the function of the sock. This is the construction of a sock, with the material it's made of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Punchline, because most of us don't think about our socks. What happens is we put these on quick and there can be a fold or it's not placed right, and you can develop a blister. That blister will affect everything else in your body, all of your play, all of your ability to support your teammates, all your ability to shoot. The sock is the most important piece of equipment that you're going to wear as a basketball player. Foundations matter. You can imagine a power lifter, somebody who's lifting, hundreds and hundreds of pounds over their head. Imagine that person having a small metal splinter in one of their toes and how much that would affect their ability to lift something heavy. This, in my view, is a good illustration of our inner lives when it comes to our fears, what we avoid, and how they move us toward excess and our worst self. Just naming the things that can be splinters, naming the spaces that have, that propensity to develop blisters, really important. And what we're going to hit today is, okay, well, what then? What do I embrace that moves me out of that? And so we're going to be talking about the heart's message. We're going to be talking about holy ideas, and we're going to talk about virtues, and that's where we're landing. So that's my illustration. Anything that was foundational? Anything to talk about before we get into this?
I want to hear from the heart types today because we're talking about the high side of our type. I was teaching a class on Wednesday, and I actually was teaching about centers of intelligence. And so I split everybody into their center of intelligence. And then I went over to the heart center and we were talking. And I asked everybody, when was the last time your core emotion came up? So everybody was talking about the last time they felt shame, right? Unsurprisingly, it was like that day or like yesterday, right? For everybody. The point was that everybody's story, something happened, they had a miscommunication with somebody, or they said something they felt like they weren't supposed to say. And then all the stories ended with, and then I felt like my value as a person was at zero, basically. That's what shame does, right? It's like what I do out in the world is directly connected to my value as a human being. So I would love to hear from heart types today, because we're talking about the high side, how, if you have experience getting away from that feeling, like what do you have to do to remind yourself that other people are not thinking of your value like that, right? What does that feel like? I'd love to hear that from people today. And then again, the holy will or the holy idea. I'll send the holy idea for each number and kind of how you feel when you read that as well.
My mantra instantly when I start to feel red in the face in my heart, you know what I mean, is they're not thinking of you, you're thinking of you. And it makes me like suspend instantly. They're not thinking of you, you're thinking of you. They're not thinking of you, you're thinking of you. And I'm like, and it doesn't, it's not like ice on the shame immediately, but it makes me stop and think productively, because I usually don't. I'm like, they hate me. I have no value. Everyone sucks. They don't like me. They hate me. They can live without me. It's the worst. But no, I have to tell myself instantly, they're not thinking about you. You're thinking about you. They're not feeling about you. You're feeling about you.
They've moved on.
They weren't even there. They weren't even there.
Yeah.
I want to hold on to that, Jackie, and come back to it in terms of, especially when it comes to twos and their ability or inability to look after their own needs. In terms of you're thinking about you, but how does that relate to needs, your own needs? I want to circle back to that though. So pin in that one. We're going with twos. I put in the notes, my notes for twos, that fear of, and I would love y'all's language on this because this is just my first pass. So there's probably plussing to do here. For twos, the fear of being unworthy or unwanted, I see as being a primary here. And notice how the avoidance kicks in the avoidance of acknowledging one's personal needs because one feels unworthy or unwanted. Those things aren't going to get verbalized. And so the hazard is that I'm going to acknowledge what's inside of me because may push people even further away. That can move toward that exterior energy, a primary for twos. All of the energy, carrying energy, goes outward and seeks to meet other people's needs. And a pattern emerges of this is how I'm getting the love and care that I desire, is by that external energy always going out, always seeking to meet other people where they're at. And in one's mind and heart might emerge this sense that I am indispensable and that's how I connect with the world. And the pride that it seems twos will speak about comes in there. It's more about indispensability. I'm here to solve everybody's problems, but it has come from that initial fear that I'm unworthy, unwanted, and I've developed this rut of trying to get my needs met. I suppose for you too, is anything we're saying about feeling unwanted, moving towards avoiding your own personal needs, and the fruit, it feels like fruit at some level, that pride comes into one's mind and heart.
Sarah said in the chat, become the broker of everyone else's needs to step away from feeling shame. I love the broker of everyone's
Broker's
needs.
a great line.
That's great language. No one sees internal dialogue. No one sees how much I think about them, worry about them, know what is best for them. And then she goes, I don't.
I think that's so for twos, fives, and eights, that it's just worth naming how you may not even notice how much of your energy goes outward and it's just encapsulated there. And the sins and fears that these types are going to struggle with really comes out of that external energy, of the problem is being met out there, as opposed to ones and fours and sevens, that the problem is being met inwardly. And then, as we'll see with 3, 6, and 9s, going both ways. But I love that language, Sarah. We skipped to this last time, and it just became so dominant as I was doing the edit, how much we need to hit the heart's message as the transition point. That some folks will call this like a childhood message, like something that we needed to hear. And for twos, the traditional list is something like you are loved, or it's okay to have your own needs. Both those phrasings of the heart's message for twos, notice, go inward. There is something about naming your value, that the things within you are valuable and worthy, and that you yourself are valuable and worthy. And I imagine, as with all of us with the heart's message, we're going to quickly raise our hand and go, yeah, but it's okay to have your own needs too. Yeah, but. And I don't know if you all resonate with that, but that's normally what my reaction to hearing the heart's message is. Thoughts on the heart's message and how it strikes you twos, or those of you who love twos?
So I was thinking about the childhood message, and I was just like, the family that I grew up in, I was just set up to be a two. Like we had lots of things going on, and my place was to be quiet and good and scan the room all the time, to do all the things to make everybody happy. And so I see how that has manifested all these years in how I react to everything. But having done some of this work, being able to, like, Suzanne Stabile says, we're not good at what we don't practice, right? And so I just have to practice saying, no, this is what I need, because it is just my default to, if I feel something strongly, but like JD, my husband, who's a 5, feels very differently, I just automatically up until kind of, the past few years would be like, yeah, you're right. I don't really feel that way. Your feeling is correct. But what we find is that, like, I can say, no, this is how I feel about this. And the world doesn't end and he still loves me and all the things. But it's when I hear y'all talk about, oh, other people don't think about others like that. I'm like, what? How how do you not spend every minute of your day thinking about all your other relationships? Like that seems crazy to me. Even after all this, in-depth work that I've done, it's still I I that boggles the mind.
Well said. Feel free.
Yes, Sarah, I can relate to all of that. I am, I think I'm struggling between, at this point on my journey, between the pride of I can meet my own needs and the healthy part of I'm worth taking care of. So I'm pretty sick this week. I'm on day 4 of really fun cold symptoms. And my husband is away on a super fun snowmobiling trip. And years ago in our marriage, first of all, I would have been like, what do you mean you're leaving on Valentine's Day weekend? And secondly, I would have been really bitter and resentful all weekend that I had to take care of me because I need to take care of everyone else and no one else is around to take care of me. And I have just been having the best weekend being sick by myself and feel like it's been a healthy place for me to say, this is what I need. I know exactly what I need, and I'm going to take care of me. And I'm not expecting my young adult kids to come over and take care of me. I'm not expecting my friends to drop by. I'm not being mad about that. But then I just saw what Sarah posted about pride also makes me think I can only take care of that I can meet my own needs. I have not asked for help for this weekend, but it's because I haven't. I really do just want to practice being alone, being sick by myself, meeting my own needs. But I don't remember the original.
It sounds like you have an awareness of your own needs and what you're saying there, which seems to me to be a primary first step. Am I wrong? In terms of, like, I imagine that it's the case that twos have a difficult time just pausing and saying, here are the needs I have. Is that correct?
I think before Enneagram wisdom hit my life, I would have been wallowing in resentment this weekend that nobody could read my mind about what I needed. But on this side or in this place in my journey, I am not expecting anyone else to read my mind and know what I need and call and text me and drop by with soup like I would do for them. I am just going to take care of my own needs.
Jennifer, is it true as well? Because what I see sometimes with twos is that you also don't even admit that you have needs until you can't escape it anymore. So is there, like, I imagine some twos would have to literally be on death's door before they're like, okay, I'm sick. I need to, like, take a day off, right? I need to take care of myself. I need all the things. So do you also see a pattern in, like, you can admit earlier that I have to take care of myself, right? Without, like, being halfway to dead before I need to take a sick day?
I used to be a full-time classroom teacher decades ago, and I never took a sick day. And it was just better for me to go in and teach than to try to come up with subplans. When I think about myself now, my late 50s and this weekend, but when I look at this weekend where I just cleared out my weekend of all the fun things that I had planned and the things I was going to do for everyone else, I can see so much growth. But again, I'm distracted with what's happening with my computer. So I hope that made sense.
Does.
It does.
Do twos, here's a question for twos. Do you need permission from the rest of us to take care of your own needs? Is that something that resonates with you? As was said, if you're able to just pivot and even find joy in saying, I'm going to take care of myself, that seems a worthy, healthy posture.
I have a potential answer to that through my own two lens, just speaking
Do it.
from myself for myself, but I'm interested in what other twos think about this because it's something I've been struggling with. I think most twos have a decent sense of what our needs are, but to name them to anyone else or even to act them out is a relational risk that we're not willing
Yeah.
to take.
Can we go down there? That's actually what I want. See, I set up my question poorly. I think that it's the case. Am I not wrong? The twos actually do know their needs. They're just waiting on the other person that they've been serving for the last 5 years to step up and meet those needs in the same way that the two had been meeting their needs. And that's actually what's desired, is the connection of having the things that you care about most met by the people who you've invested in most. But do you have a thought on that, Sarah?
I do. And again, speaking only through my two lens, I don't necessarily wait for someone else to come meet those needs. I feel like if I step out of the version of myself that everyone has come to expect and anticipate, it creates a relational risk for me to step into my own needs, or to, like, the idea of verbalizing my own needs to someone else
Yeah.
feels untouchable.
Yeah,
I have a thought. Can I
Please.
just, okay. So, I'm a two myself. So this feels like I'm saying something that I don't like because I'm saying it from like a coach perspective. Twos do not know what they need. They know what they could use. They know what they would like. I would like him to write me a card. I could use a walk. Okay. They want you to read their minds about that, but they don't know what their real needs are, because what they are effectively attempting to get is something that's going to turn into self-love from another person. And without that, everything that they're looking for is sort of futile. When you have self-love as a base level, when you know how to meet your needs or access them and meet them directly, twos can actually compartmentalize the difference between their own needs to be met and relational needs. And it's actually a way that they can evaluate the relationships and things like that. But I think at a base level, and the more it gets atrophied that a two cannot or is attempting to elicit self-love from another person, the less they actually know what they need in real time. Even if it's, I just need you to say you love me, or XYZ, like, to be able to collect that and verbalize it gets harder and harder. So I don't think that twos know what they need. I think they know what's going to fix the symptom of how they feel or what they're expecting right then. That's the sign that's going to show them in that moment that they're loved and seen and cared for and chosen and special and blah, 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 blah. But they don't realize that they're attempting to get this foundational self-love from another person. They do not know what they need. And until they can name that, Sarah, you're so funny. I'm done. Soapbox done. Sarah, tell me what you
No,
think.
that's an exceptional distinction, I think, if I may, that you are saying the two things that they need, the reciprocated care in a certain way from the person in front of them. But what is actually needed is something more foundational.
Yep. They're trying to get there are tangible signs on the outside that things are balanced, and then, okay, yeah, I'm loved. And the reason it doesn't stick is because it's like how, sometimes we talk about sixes' inability to establish real trust or real courage without self-trust.
Yes.
So hard to, it's really the same concept, and we're outsourcing self-love
Yes.
through trying to meet need. Like, I call them symptoms. I'm like, especially when twos come in, like, there are a lot of symptoms, like, but what we're trying to do is we have to, like, cut ties with how we're trying to get self-love through these outsourced things. We can make contact with those very, very much. We still won't meet them. I still want people to meet my needs for me, but those are all symptoms of where I'm lacking in self-love and attention, etc.
Fantastically said. I think that's spot on.
Thank you.
So I'm sure there's a simple solution to getting that. I mean, you can just grab that, can't you? Twos, self-love is just there for the taking. Being able to elevate your own value by yourself. What's the secret sauce there?
I have no idea what you just said. I'm sorry. What you said
Well,
was
if
just
you're
so
not-
lost on. And I think it's because I'm a two. I'm like, how do I metabolize
So-
I have to conjure the way that some people have to conjure certain things because it's like an atrophied muscle. I don't,
Mhm.
it's not that I'm in a constant state of self-hatred, but I have to conjure up self-love constantly, like working out a muscle that like the second you put the weight down, it atrophies again. It needs constant care. And it's a funny line because I'm not like so in my own world, but I also know I'm gonna mistreat and have these weird expectations of the people outside of me if I can't get what I need right. Like it's not fair. There are relational needs that you can't meet by yourself. It's fair to have relational needs, but like I don't want somebody else to meet my needs because that's bad.
It seems to me this seems to me just core here. So just to use a different number to illustrate the point, a big element for me as a one is finding my own sense of goodness and not seeing myself through a filter in which I'm thoroughly defective. I can get that from other people, but I can also get the opposite message from other people very fast. My sense of self needs to have some foundation. And so believing that I'm good at like that I'm beautifully, wonderfully made and designed exquisitely for purposes that are valuable. These are core for me, but I can't get those from other people. I have to get those from something else. It seems to me so, and we've mentioned that some of us have religious traditions that like you go to your source for that message. This is something that it seems to me is coming up in the two conversation. And I think we'll see it with threes and fours in terms of like finding your value in either your own ability to create that sense of self, speak the heart's message over yourself, or hear that with the bold voice of whatever your source is. And I feel like does that make sense? Do you see where I'm going there? The being reminded that you are loved and lovable, and that your needs have value, needs to come from someplace and needs to be manifest. Do you have thoughts on that, Katie? I feel like I'm not landing the plane there.
Well, can I ask a different question? Does everyone agree with Jackie?
Mm.
I know her. She's very cool. She's not going to hate you if you're like, I think you're wrong.
Which part?
The part where she said, I actually don't think you know what you need, right? Be brave. Be brave.
Well, it's not so much about being brave as it is about knowing what I'm thinking.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I was actually just typing a response to Jackie. I think the difference in what we were saying, and this may take us away, so feel free to pull me back to the question, is I wasn't speaking of relational needs. I was speaking of my own needs and the actions that are required to meet my own needs causing relational issues because it takes me away from that ever present awareness of what everyone else needs. So I think that was the distinction that
Mhm.
felt like maybe we were talking about different things.
Yeah. Jackie, do you have thoughts?
I do. I was just typing to Sarah. Sarah, do you ever, and I apologize that I sort of misunderstood where you were going there. Do you ever feel sort of like you can only do one at once? Like you can only focus with a magnifying glass on like what you need, or you can fully focus on other people and you have a hard time being able to do both without rupture? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Then yes. Agree to agree, babe.
So, if we could, Jeff, I don't know how you feel about this. Can I ask about the holy idea?
I would love to move
Okay.
into the holy idea.
So if you read in the chat to that holy idea about letting go of control and things aren't up to you, and that the rest of it that I'm reading about right now.
Rude.
How do you feel when you read this idea of holy freedom and holy will? If you'll remember if anyone was here last time, I think it was Eric, or maybe I think it was Eric, when he read the ones about the eights, he was like, that'd be great if that was true, right? Or somebody said that. Like, sure, that would be great if that was true. I would love to think that that was true, right? About the world. The holy idea should be a description of a worldview that just feels so far away from your reality that it like doesn't feel like that could be real, even though it would be really nice if it was real, right? Whereas the other numbers read this and we're like, sure, yeah, right? Like, yeah, sure, that can be true. So twos, I'm wondering, how do you feel about, yes, let me put the holy will again.
It makes me uncomfortable. I have a chronic skirting around being useless, and so like I sort of, as a person who's always trying to like keep my own motives in front of my face, my own intent in front of my face. Like I have this quote that I live by, twos in their quotes, right? Excessive helping is just the sunny side of control. And it's like, and there's something in here where it's like this idea of letting go is really, really risky and really scary. And like, it doesn't feel real, like at all. It doesn't feel graspable, but like to some idea, like it does for other people. Like, I feel like this is the world that I'm really trying to create for other people. And I guess I want it reciprocated. Oh, oops. Okay. Bye.
I think the word that feels risky is fascinating because that's how I feel when I read the one about threes. And I won't talk about that till we get to threes. But my other twos, what do you think about the word, this feels risky, right? To believe this.
Can I pause actually real quick?
Yeah.
Katie, can you restate the holy idea for twos? When I read this, I don't get it. I don't understand what it's seeking to communicate. When you look at holy will, holy freedom, what is the thing that has energy there?
It's not the second sentence. Twos believe you personally have to make things happen or rescue others. So the holy freedom and holy will, it's not your job. It's not your job to take care of others. There's this other force that's going to take care of them. It's okay.
I see. Perfect.
I see it
Thank you.
as a release of trying to control the emotional narrative of their life.
Love. Yeah. Teresa, do you have something to say?
It's well said, Eric.
Yeah, the idea that it feels risky, it feels uncomfortable, what Jackie said a few minutes ago. I think I've always felt and been taught that when we are uncomfortable, that's when we need to lean in. That's a guidepost for us. So I just wanted to offer that as a reminder.
Other thoughts, or people who know twos? Do you have thoughts? Would love to hear from twos, but
I would love to pitch it as a question for twos. Is it like, does Eric's language land with you that like it hurts or is difficult to release the emotional narrative of other people's lives? That's not yours to oversee.
Sometimes. Sometimes I think again, you sort of have to practice it. And I was talking to Katie the other day. For those of you that don't know, Katie Whitlock is my daughter. So it's yeah. So her having witness to my whole thing is something else. But anyway, we were talking about how I am learning that I can both sit with somebody and hear what they need to say, whatever that is, and just do that, not feel like I'm in control of it or I have to fix it, and that is enough. And so to me, it feels like I'm learning that. So I get to touch it every now and then I slip back down into thinking that no, I actually can fix it. And if they'd only listen to me, everything would be better and all the things. But it's this sort of it's just sort of a momentary thing where you go, oh, that's what I'm after, is that feeling of being present and yet not feeling like it's all on me to do.
Suzanne Stabile teaches that for twos, and honestly for every number, but specifically for twos, to ask yourself, is this mine to do?
Mhm.
Well, and I think that we talked last time about the path to the holy idea being bringing up the repressed center. And so the path towards what is mine to do is bringing up the thinking center and analyzing, hey, do I really?
Andrew.
What'd you say, Andrew?
I was just gonna, I'm not sure if I'm gonna say or ask, but isn't, Sarah, what you just said about momentarily understanding the holy idea for you as a two, isn't that kind of what the holy is about? We don't get to sit there. Like we we get to see it through a crack, or we get to see a little bit, and then we have to, go on. But that experience changes us because we get to, we get to see a little bit. I mean, when I think about the holy idea for a one, like, that I am fundamentally intrinsically good no matter what. Like I can get that, like you said, Sarah, for a little bit. Um, but I think that's the point, I guess. That's what I wanted to point out, is that we never get to sit in the holy. Like we only get to like visit briefly. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I think that, first of all, I think that's beautiful, Andrew. I think you're absolutely correct. And I had a question for my mom or anybody, any twos. What do you feel like you get to bring back with you? If we're putting forward this idea, if you don't get to sit in the holy, you only get to see it quickly, right? Like Andrew said, but then you have to come back. Do you bring anything back with you each time you go? Does it get easier? Anyway, that's my question. What do you bring back?
I can share an experience I had and how I've constantly revisited it, trying to remember. So I was at a Enneagram retreat, and Beatrice Chestnut was demonstrating mudras. I don't know if people are familiar with mudras. They're these postures that in some circles have like some spiritual meaning, but the mudra for a type 2, so she demonstrated this for us, and we had done some, we were in the right headspace. Let me say, we were in the right heart space. uh, so the pride of the two demonstrated is, like that puffed up chest, walking around. I know everything. I've got this under control. What are your needs? Um, and then the virtue of the two was a posture of making herself so small and so um, it was almost like a child's pose, but in the most small, non-existent version. And that humility of non-existence was the virtue. And the experience of that for me in that moment in time was as if I had died. It felt like death. It felt like I couldn't sit with it. I needed to run and escape it. And then, as quick as it felt like death, it was the most intense craving I've ever experienced. I wanted it for myself immediately. And thankfully, I could sit with that craving for a few minutes. And then over a series of hours and days, that craving got further and further away. But ever since I've experienced that, I've wanted that craving. So I'm craving the craving. I don't have the craving, but I'm craving the craving. And that to me was the closest I've ever come to the virtue of the two and the holy idea. But I had to experience something that felt like death to get there.
That's power. That makes me kind of want to cry a little bit. That's very powerful. And I want
There
to
were a
connect
lot of
that.
tears.
Yeah.
Lots of
Oh, I
tears.
can't. And now I want to be like, what's the one for 3? But we can talk about that later. I want to draw that back to what someone said about it being risky, to believe in this holy idea. Like Sarah, what you said, if it feels like dying, like of course that's risky, right? To just let yourself go up to the, you know what I mean? Just belong to the universe completely. And it's not my job to take care of other people. And it's not my job to exert my, will on other people. That's a good story. Thank you for sharing that.
Can
Any
I
other
ask a
twos?
question of the twos?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think earlier, maybe it was Sarah that said you're expressing your needs mean there might be a break in the relationship. So if your need, if you had a really strong need, would you not express it ever if it would really break the relationship? If if that was really true, would the relationship be more important than your need? That's my question.
100% for me. 100%.
Retweet. Yeah.
It is true until it's not true. And then it comes out in ugly, ugly ways.
It
For
depends.
sure. Yes.
Someone
Sarah, I
said in the
appreciate
chat, oh, Kyle, your wife is a 2. I've noticed her expression of needs can often come out in anger or frustration. So maybe that's that.
So is that just finally 2 goes to 8 and it gets ugly? Is that what you mean, Sarah?
I think for me, that's true.
To wrap up, twos, it strikes me to move towards humility. We've been talking about the virtues, traditional list of virtues, more as fruit. And when you actually embrace the holy idea and the heart's message, what emerges is the traditional list of virtues. That's what strikes me here. If one actually is wholly free to live in a world in which they are not responsible for shoring up all the emotional difficulties of the people that we care about, the freedom there creates a fruit, and that fruit is something like humility, that one can see one's own duties, value, in a different light, that you can serve others with no need to gain reciprocal care. It strikes me as a place of real power for twos. If you are able to serve out of a place where I need nothing from the person in front of me, that both has a humble posture. I'm doing this out of genuine care without expectation. And also the we had brought up control before in terms of how control can manifest in two's acts of service, but the control here is very different. If one is able to feel as though their bank account is entirely full and spill over with generosity without need of reciprocation, that's a different kind of control that seems to me to only emerge if you've done a lot of internal work and found your value elsewhere. I suppose that's how I would spin this. But again, I want to come back. I wanted to say this at the beginning. I find 2 is the most difficult number to understand for myself. And so every time I'm speaking, I'm like, I don't understand this type. I'm really sorry. So, but that's my take. Final thoughts on 2s?
So 2s are the one type. I have some great 2 friendships in my life. Some are really healthy, some not so much, but it's the one Enneagram type that I seem to have the most friction with. And the reason is because I always get a sense, especially when it's like an unhealthy average 2, that they want something from me I will never be able to give them. And that they're looking for something from me that like they already have. I just can't give it to them. And I think that kind of goes back to that kind of self-love idea. The healthy 2s I know are really great relationships for me because they are taking the risks and telling me, hey, I can do this, but here's my needs. Or I like so I want to kind of share some of this because like as being what might be the only 6 on this call, you say risk, I'm like, yeah, I got you. Like I get that because for a 2 or for a 6, it's about safety, not necessarily relational. Like the kind of It's similar but not the same. Like I would kind of want to share that as like an invitation to like take that risk, because it's actually what's helped me in my relationships with twos, and it's actually bettered my relationships because then I'm like, oh, I can actually kind of trust this person now a little bit more, and that kind of unrolls that way, you know. So I get it's hard. I get like the language around ego death and all of that. I totally get that, and I actually think that's a pretty key point. But yeah, just like that invitation to that risk. I think there's something there, something worth there for all my two friends to, I don't know, follow on.
That's great, Asher. Thank you. It's more fun for the rest of us to be in relationship with somebody who needs something every once in a while. Right? It's more reciprocal.
You got that last thoughts on twos, Katie?
No, I think you're incredible. What I don't want you to do is leave here and be thinking about all the things you need to do and the ways you need to be better and blah 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 blah, right? Because I know the twos I know, yes, my mother, but I also know other twos. That's what they would take, right? Is everybody needs me to do this other thing and I need to be better and all the things. And I like did you do that on purpose, Asher? The little hearts. I'll tell you my favorite thing about twos, and I told my mother this whenever I told her this. My favorite thing about a healthy two, when you reach that level of presence, like my mom was talking about, when you can just sit and you don't need to do anything, what you give people, because you are so relational and you really, really do genuinely care about what people are going through. What happens is that if I have something I'm going through, I can give it to my mother and she cuts it in half. And I can do that with my friend who's a two and she cuts it in half. And then we're both sharing it. And they don't need to do anything with it. They don't need to take it on. But to have a friend who can cut what's happening to you in half and feel like they're sharing it with you is, I'm trying to think of a word that feels big enough for that. Is incredible, I'll just say, right? To feel like someone really sees you. And that's what twos are good at, really, really seeing you, right? What you're going through and caring and wanting to carry it with you. When you can do that in a way that's real and present and not needing to fix it, just sharing it, I think that's the best thing about you. So thank you all twos for doing that for the rest of us.
Moving to threes. Katie, in our live recordings recently has talked about not just the fear of worthlessness, but of lacking value. Those go together at some levels, but you can see how the avoidance of appearing like a failure may come out of that. And you can see how avoiding the appearance of failure may lead to a high emphasis on image crafting, self-promotion, etc. Whereas the threes in my life routinely have a sense, I think, that they have a genuine excellence underneath that they're trying to grab hold of at some level. And yet that may not be seen and they may not be able to see it themselves, but that's what's striven for. That's what they want. Striven. Deceit, and this is a place that I wanted to talk to Katie more about, and maybe you can speak to this. So in our conversations, self-deceit has been the passion and sin that's come up. I do think that there's an outward element to this, and so I would want to say it's a both ways. As with 3, 6s, and 9s, the energy is going both ways, and I think deceit is going both ways when it's actually in that sinful, quote unquote, space of both self-deception and seeking to spin outwardly. And that can get into the mind of a 3, where deceit and vanity begin to create kind of a loop. And so that's, I think, the rut that is there for the 3 to get out of. And we're going to talk about getting out of that. But any thoughts on the problem there?
I So I think everybody has heard me talk a lot about threes, so I really want to hear from the other threes. But what I'll give you other threes to respond to is I feel like the things I have done are excellent. Of course they are. I would not have done them if they weren't. I don't think that I am excellent, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to do excellent things so that you look at me and see a person who does excellent things because I feel not excellent, right? Without those things. That's what I'll give you. Other threes, I would love to hear what you have to say about that.
I'll also jump in. Yeah, I say that's very spot on. And I think there's also that tendency, if I show up in something, somehow I feel compelled to lead in it. And for me, the big challenge has been asking myself, is this mine to get into? So just because I'm there doesn't mean I have to stick my hand up in the air and then take charge of whatever the thing is, right? I can let somebody else be the leader, and that's just excruciatingly hard to then when I'm not in that zone, it drives me nuts that somebody else is leading a thing. So, and it's always that push pull because even if I was leading it, I would resent the hell out of the fact that I was leading it because it's not my thing, you know. But and round and round.
I'm laughing, Katie, because if the first few podcasts I put out on early access, when I go back and listen to them, I'm like, I am talking over this person. I invited this person onto my podcast and then I'm telling them stuff. What am I doing? So I'm laughing about I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Other threes would love to hear. Do we have other threes?
Ingrid's a 3 as well.
Oh yeah.
No, I think you hit it on the mark when you said it's the, I was just talking to another group that I feel like I'm constantly running, like there's always something in the future that's going to make things better that's going to make me better. Like I'm always looking at, when you said you're not worthy, it's like constantly earning the worth. And I had mentioned to them that when a counselor asked me, what would your life be like if you believed you had inherent worthiness? And without even thinking, I said I'd retire because my work life was where I was earning, that was where I was earning my worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had worked way beyond the time when I could have retired, but I just felt like that was my arena for worthiness. And it popped out of my mouth so quick. She just looked at me and said, you answered your question. And so it's like, it's teaching me that every time my mind says, I need to listen to more podcasts, or I need, I'm not listening to enough Enneagram stuff, whatever it is, it's because where I am right now, I'm not worthy enough that I could do one more thing to be just a little bit better. So, and it isn't always for others to know. It's because I'm trying to convince myself that I'm worthy. And if other people do it, gosh, when somebody compliments me, it's like, like this dopamine rush, like you saw something I did and you told me I was worthy. And it's like, when you talked about self-love for the twos, I'm constantly asking for validation from others. Like I am outsourcing that validation to other people. And that's when I don't do that, when I can say, good job. And you don't have to tell a soul about it. Like what you just did was great and nobody else needs to know about it. That's really hard because I'm like, well, can I tell this? Just this one person.
Right.
Don't tell anybody. And it's like there's this like gnawing thing about it's not really worthy enough unless somebody else knows about it.
Yeah, it feels like it doesn't exist unless somebody else knows about it. Why would I have done it if I couldn't tell anybody about it?
Right. And that's like, so that's my thing is a lot of times, am I willing to do something if nobody else would know about it? Like, that's kind of like my question is, are you doing it because you feel obligated or because you feel like it's not worthy enough unless somebody else knows you're doing it? So that's a real question for me when I'm choosing an activity or choosing, somebody throws something out. Why do I want to do this?
Mhm.
And a lot of times I don't do it because it's like, I'm doing it because I want other people to see me doing it. So that's my thoughts.
And I'll just tag on to what Ingrid just said. That's so spot on. And I think about throughout my whole working career, um, my career trajectory was often determined by somebody senior in the organization acknowledging me and then asking me to take on whether it was a job or a project or on whatever. And the fact that they were validating me was the draw. I never stopped to think, hey, is this something I really want to do? It was mostly, can I excel at this? And is this, they see me, they're acknowledging me, and off I go, right? So.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, for a long
yeah,
you
I
go,
think,
Ingrid.
no, I was going to say because, for a long time I believed I was a people pleaser because of that, but it wasn't. Twos are people pleasers maybe, but because I don't I don't want to say I don't care about them, but it's like what I want is I'm seeking validation from the other person. And whereas I think twos are trying to really please what they're doing for a person is really because they think they need it and want it and they will appreciate what, trying to please that person. But go ahead, Ned. Sorry I interrupted you.
So if I can I talk about how I feel when I read the holy idea? Do either of you have anything else to say before I do that? Does anybody else have anything? We're just chatting. The threes are just chatting right now. Does anybody else have anything to say
I would-
before I
I-
move on?
I would love to sum up the problem because it's
Yeah.
a problem I feel as well. But you are what you do. That's not necessarily something that hits me as an unworthy move. Like I'm like, yeah, of course that's how that works. That's actually the heart of existentialism right there. Let's go there. But as is said, that can be a slippery slope to some really toxic places.
Yeah.
Ingrid, the phrase that you find yourself constantly asking for validation is the best summary of of three
You know how good that makes me
motives
feel.
that I've heard in a while. Like that's really strong.
Ingrid, you
You're
did
getting
it.
my boost for the day.
Yep, you were validated.
I don't know that I've seen the word validation, but that's what I think, at least in my experience of my bride who's a three, that's what I think validation is a great word for what is really core. And it comes out of you are what you do. So if I am what I do, then I need the other, but it's paired with, I need other people to be the ones to communicate. I see that the thing that you've done. And that's what validation is. I think that's really, really well said. Anyway, that was my take. Holy
Andrew?
idea. What do you say?
Well, I want to hear from Andrew first, then
Oh,
I'll say.
sorry.
I just wanted to add, Ingrid and I are friends and have had this conversation a number of times, but it's such a subtle difference, but so important to understand each other. I do stuff. I often do the same exact thing that Ingrid would do, but I do it because I want to make sure that I'm a good person.
Mm.
Ingrid does it because she wants to make sure she did a good thing.
Man,
For me, that difference helps me really understand how my three friend sees the world differently than I do,
yeah,
even though we do the same stuff.
yeah. That's actually very helpful. I have a woman in the class I'm teaching right now that's struggling between 1 and 3, and I'm gonna give her that. So thank you for that, Andrew. I'm just laugh. I just feel like, when we talk about threes, just get thrown in a little, just feel very vulnerable in front of everybody. Anyway, what I see when I read the Holy Idea is that it's, I sent it in the chat if anyone needs to look, but it's this idea that things operate according to their own laws. You are not the doer that makes reality unfold. And then the big one is at the end, Holy Hope reminds us that this means that we can hope for the best without taking full responsibility for making it happen ourselves, right? And what I feel when I read that is if I believe that, then I might die and never make anything of myself. And then what? Then it was all for naught. Then I believed in this thing and I thought all this great stuff was going to happen and I just left it up to the universe. But then there's some chance that none of it happens, right? And then I hear God or something yelling at me and being like, yeah, that's the point. Right? Is that, yeah, maybe you might die and not become who you want to be, right? You might go your whole life and never become the person you want to be. And the point was it's because you were already who you needed to be, right? You don't need to do all these things. But I said I really liked when the twos said it feels risky, because this feels risky to believe. Because if I believe this, then I might not finally, like Ingrid said, finally in the future get to be the person who feels confident in herself and has done just enough good things so that everyone thinks she's great and all the things and all the image I have in my head, right? So that's what I feel. I feel like, well, okay, but then I could die and I never make a name for myself. And then again, I hear the voice and say, right. Right. That's the point, right? That could happen. That's okay. You already have a name for yourself because of who you are, right? Because of your inherent value. But that's what I feel. Other threes, what do you think? Or anybody? Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I would even say to that question about do we feel the need to control the emotional narrative? I would say I feel the need to correct the emotional narrative, some of the time.
Loud. That's the independent stance coming out.
Okay for there to be there as long as,
Yeah.
I can,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally, as I kind of, going through retirement and all that kind of stuff, that's one of the big challenges of retirement is, okay, so whatever happened in my career happened and I'm never going to be what I thought I was going to be in my career, and very hard to just kind of come to peace with that and let that go, even though, it's kind of facts of the universe, you're done working, so whatever was there, but
Right.
it is hard to accept. So now, then I have my retirement goals and what am I going to achieve? What am I going to achieve rather than just, being right. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm saying right now that I live in a small community and I see that with generational shift even, very hard to allow that kind of the next generation of people coming up as community leaders want to do things differently, want to take things in different directions and just letting it go and recognizing that it's their time. And just allowing that to be is tough sometimes.
See, for me, it seems like before knowing the Enneagram, I truly believed that I could control the uncontrollable. If I planned enough, if I thought about all the different things that could go wrong, like I could control the future if I just did the right, did it. And so the idea that the universe has its own rules, but I may not know the laws that it's operating under, but I have to believe that the laws exist. It's just I may not be fully understanding what they are. And so I guess because I'm so future focused, I keep thinking what I do in the present will have this, I can do it. So it's the idea that the universe, that's a feeling of feeling insecure.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow the universe is spinning and I don't have control over that. It's, I have a part of it. It's kind of the part where they talk about you're part of it, you're not all of it.
Yeah. Everyone's asking about our relationship with grief. You guys, just kidding.
What is that?
Asher,
What is it?
everyone's asking about
No, I
our
mean, there's an extra
yeah, what?
emotion. What?
Asher,
Yeah,
tell me what
exactly.
made you think about that.
Yeah, just kind of some of what was being said about like just accomplishment and even like the transition with like retirement or kind of this end of life reflection. You know, I get into this future and maybe it isn't what I am. Kind of this relationship with the holy idea and kind of this accomplishment and achievement. And I just really what rose this curiosity for me, like with threes and like being able to name losses and to grieve like things and to grieve maybe what wasn't accomplished, or maybe I would even say to grieve the things you gave up for achievement or for that validation, like grieving those things. So I think we talked a lot about with threes about like with shame and this kind of idea of like holy hope. And I'm kind of like shame, but I think hope also can kind of invite us into this space to like to grieve and to grieve our losses well.
Mhm.
Because I think that's a part of healing. I don't want to get too far ahead in that, but I think like a part of the healing journey for all people is like, how well can we grieve? And so I was just kind of like, as y'all were talking, I was just really curious about like the relationship that threes have with grief.
Yeah, I think that's really brilliant, actually, and it's very true. I think for me, that the grieving is emerging, but it's part of the challenge. I mean, I can tell you that I've got emotions going on, but naming them is brutally difficult. So that's been a lot of the work, actually, is to stop and go, something's churning, and it might take me days to actually land on what the heck is it, that's churning. So that is really the work, is that whole dance with experiencing emotions. Mostly you'd be looking at, oh, I'm, manically working or cleaning or whatever. Perhaps there's something going on, but it's a mental exercise instead of a heart exercise a lot of the time. And I have to kind of really consciously apply to get down to the heart.
Well,
Can you talk?
no, I was going to say that for grieving, I lost a spouse, and I retired within a close thing, and for I'm almost 71, and I have been a true Enneagram 3 as far as stuffing down my feelings and emotions. I can outrun them. I was outrunning them for most of my life until I finally stopped. I mean, stopped my job. I don't have a partner. And I'm noticing that, all of those emotions that have sat for all of those years are coming up. And, it's strange, but eventually they do have to come up. And I like the idea of the grieving, because every choice we make, we're giving up on something else. If I choose to believe the holy truth or the holy law, then I'm going to have to give up something else. And, are we willing to give it up? But grieving what we've lost, at least for me as a 3, grieving has not been something that I've been good at. I've been able to outrun it for most of my life. I don't know if that's true for you, because you're maybe in the middle of retirement.
I also imagine it would. So I'm 27. I don't have the same lens, back on my career or life, but what I would hazard to guess is that I know it is true for me that stopping feels like failure, and to grieve you have to stop. And threes, I don't even know if we get to the point of realizing we should be grieving, because we're not going to stop enough to even think about it. Because as soon as you stop, you look around and you realize you're not who you want to be. You haven't done all the things you want to do. You don't get to live in your future mind palace where you're everything you want to be, right? So just the act of stopping and looking around feels horrible. So why that already feels like I've failed. To just not do anything, not even to fail, but just to not do anything feels already like failure. So why would we do that, right? Andrew, go ahead.
Katie Whitlock. So because of your age and the different lens, I'm curious about this. Joy Shui says that threes take all their emotional stuff and they put it in a pile. And they have this all pile of undealt with emotions. And eventually, to get healthy, they have to go through the pile. At the age of 27, do you feel like you have a pile? Do you have a pile already?
So I feel like my situation is a little different. I feel like if I was not born to the mother that I was born to, I absolutely would feel that way. But I have a mother who, and a father actually, who are very intentional with their feelings, and we talk about things. And so, interestingly enough, it was never a thing in our family to let your emotions pile up, right? One, because my mother, because she's a two, she can look at me and she can see that like one atom on my face is different and she can tell that I'm upset, right? And then we talk about it. The difference, though, I'm still going to apply 3 to that. What that actually has trained me to do, I think that's positive in almost every way. What it has trained me to do is that now I know I have to talk about things to feel better. And so as soon as something happens to me, because I'm a 3 and I don't want to feel bad, I have to talk about it immediately. Like right as soon as it happens, right now I have to talk about it because I want to be done with it. And I know that I can't just ignore it, right? I do feel lucky I got that lesson early, but I want to be done. So I have to call my mother in the middle of the workday and I have to talk to her about it right now, or I have to text my fiance Jace and tell him right now because then I get to be done, right? So I still have not learned the lesson of sitting with it truly just by myself. But I think you heard like Ingrid, I heard that language of like I had all this stuff piled up, right? So I do think it's kind of the same, just different. That's my answer to that question.
Well,
'Cause
you
I do
found
see
a
a lot of the
very
same behavior.
efficient way of doing it.
Right,
And
right.
that's efficiency, which
Okay,
is a
done.
core
Oh, I
3.
have a feeling. That's what it
Yes,
feels like.
I have a feeling efficiently, I'm going to get more done
Yeah.
if I deal with it and
Mom,
come
yeah.
back.
But to go ahead and bring back to the holy idea of hope, a holy hope that is intrinsic, that you have intrinsic value. If you're already doing what you're doing and borrowing from your neighbor of 2 to bring up that feeling, to bring towards the holy idea, if you're trying to identify what it looks like to feel intrinsic value, you have a shortcut there to say, how would my mother see me? Because there's, I mean, I don't know you or your mother that well, but I can't imagine there's a world in which what you do or don't do matters to the value you have to her.
Right.
And
Yes.
and so that bringing up the feeling where you can borrow from 2 is the path once again towards the holy idea where you have that intrinsic value.
Yeah. Agreed. Well said.
Yeah.
Side note for me listening to this is that I think it's really important for 2s, 3s, and 4s to note that part of the heart filter is that it's a past orientation. And sometimes you don't get into your emotional experiences till they're in the past. Something I see a lot in my spouse is that the event needs to be 3-6 months in the past before she actually is able to engage it for the reasons stated. Stopping feels like failure. The emotion is in front of you, the event is in front of you, and how the 3 responds in terms of fulfilling their motive, it's going to be reacting to the thing and moving through it, beyond it, not necessarily emotionally comprehending it and allowing that emotional comprehension to do real business with your soul. You know, so when my spouse's mom died, stopping feels like failure at some level, but there's things to do, you know, when you have the death of a parent. But when there's nothing else to do and it's finally in the past and then it begins to have its effect on you, that's a different place. I think that, like Eric's brought it up a few times, I think it's exactly right that as we're going through all of this, really noting how these ideas overlap with the repressed center really matter. So for the twos, repressed thinking, and for the threes here, repressed emotions. And I want to put special emphasis on this. None of that's like wrong. There's not like a failure taking place in not being able to engage one's emotional core in the moment. Like this is like wiring is this is just how we're wired at some levels. It takes quite a bit of work, I think, to be able to to really engage feelings in those ways. But the other thing that I see, and it's worth naming, and maybe there's something about going to the high side of your motive that's really important here. It's when watching my spouse, the places that look most embarrassing to the outside world are the places where I really see her value and core, like the true quality of her heart, of the work that she's done is actually exposed in the places that I think on the face of it may look most embarrassing. So I've told this story to Katie offline, I think, but like we have an autistic kid. She worked at a high school. They were in middle school, and there were times where their entire class had to be removed from the classroom because my child was having a meltdown, a violent meltdown. Now that gets out. That gets out to everybody that she works with, to everybody that she serves. And her response in those moments actually showcased her quality, where it would have been one of those things: you're not a good mom, you're not a good teacher. It's clearly your child can't even get their stuff together. Her quality in those moments of response are some of the things that really come to my mind immediately as there's the core of this person. That doesn't necessarily go toward the holy idea, but I would actually like to push toward that for a second and say, like, how do you engage this? Threes, you have intrinsic value. You have value prior to anything that you do. How do you get that? How do you name that? What's the source of that? Can you put language to that?
I think people talk a lot about threes are doing the whole thing where like they fake it till they make it. Which is negative in a lot of places, but that's how I do this. I don't know for numbers 2, 3s, and 4. For numbers 2, 3, and 4, I just like people keep telling me over and over and over and over again that I have intrinsic value as I am. So maybe I just have to believe them. Like that's what it feels like for me. Am I ever going to get to a point where I truly carry that with me and I don't ever think about it and I just fully believe it? I don't know. But people have told me enough times that it just feels like like you just have to make a choice whether you're going to believe it or not. You know, I don't know. I don't know if the other threes, if you have a different relationship with it, because like I don't believe it, but enough people have told me that maybe it's just my job to pick it up, right? Because I'm better when I pick it up. I'm a better friend. I'm a better partner. I'm a better daughter. All the things, right? So maybe it's just my job to kind of
told you to calm.
bake myself into believing it until I don't, or until I do, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Feels like a choice.
Yeah, it is, and I know kind of how I express that one is I constantly reframe until I can sort of feel my way through it, and so that's a doing thing, but it's a doing thing that's not about kind of engaging doing. It's kind of how do I keep reframing in my mind until I can get to a place where I feel like I can engage around something, and I think that's part of that trying to accept that I'm intrinsically okay, but there's a thing in front of me, like your example, which I think is a really good one. Is that's a big thorny challenge to that whole concept. So finding a way to adapt intrinsic value in the circumstance. That makes any sense?
And I will say, I just always keep coming back to my question is, what would I do differently now? What would I do differently today if I truly believed I was intrinsically worthy? So it's like I try and do it from the other end by doing the behaviors, like it's like recognizing that I have to look at my behaviors to help, like, I don't know. It's like you keep coming back to the idea of the fake it till you make it. It's like do the things that show that I am intrinsically worthy. Like waking up today and staying in my pajamas and not doing anything. You know, I can do that because I'm intrinsically worthy. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. So it's kind of like fake it till you make it idea by doing the actions that prove that that's true.
I think it goes back to knowing that we are a child of God and we're made in his image. And I think it has to do and I'm not there, but our relationship with God and knowing that he loves us and we are perfectly made. If we can get to that point in our life, I think we can get past some of this other stuff that we're trying to work on.
I want to build on that for a minute, Annie, and just to name it. And I think I did this last time, so I hate to repeat myself, but just like I find it so difficult to get to these holy ideas without some kind of source that is spiritual. Like I like just conceptually, I don't know how you get there. So it may be the case that for those of you who can't name that, I'd be curious how you would get there. For myself, that's exactly like the easy pivot for me in terms of embracing the holy idea ends up being deference to the divine. It's super easy for me to get there, and it's super easy for me to embrace that when I really get my when I put on that posture of heart. I don't know how to get there otherwise. And I would I would love something to recommend to those who can't get there, but I don't know how to get there. So anyway, do you all see the problem there?
Yeah, I do. And this may be helpful. So for the past 4 months, I've been doing chaplaincy for a drug rehabilitation center here in Denver. And so a lot of the time I spend with people is talking about their higher power and kind of connecting to this bigger than I kind of idea. And there's a lot of people that I run into that are like, don't believe it. I'm struggling with it. I don't know how to get there. A lot of the very similar same things. And what's interesting is this can also create a hurdle for sobriety. So a lot of times I'll meet with folks that feel like if I can't figure out what my higher power is, then I'm never going to be sober. I'm never going to beat this, right? And so I think what's helpful is the holy idea in itself can operate in that way to some degree, right? Like it's just something that is bigger than yourself. And I think what's really interesting and about something Katie said earlier was this idea of just like letting go of the destination, because I can see where certain types, threes especially, like this idea of becoming healthy is just another achievement, right? And there's just this other box to check, you know. And just trying to do that work, we can get into our addiction, right? Of like, okay, I'm just gonna keep doing achieving, and then maybe I'll get there, right? Where I would offer the invitation, like the holy idea can be enough if that's your relationship with spirituality or divine. It's really just like, what is helping me reconnect with myself, the other, and something bigger than myself? Well, hope is a great thing to connect to, right? Let that expand and just keep growing. There's a guy by the name of Gerald May who wrote this book called Addiction and Grace, and he talks about that it's really this idea of consecration, and it's this idea of not necessarily giving up drinking. It's, I'm going to lean in towards this other thing. Yes, we want to give up our addictions, especially like recovery type thing, but it's more about, I want to be a person of hope, for the threes, right? Like, I want to really lean into this holy idea and then just start letting other things go. I kind of like what Ingrid had talked about a minute ago about like, how can I live into that? And that's a part of this work of getting there ultimately, right, Jeff? Of just like, it's not, I'm starting from a place of knowing the divine. It's like, I'm actually looking for it and seeking it and engaging in the spirituality. And so there's these practices, these things that I can do that help me go along the way. So it's kind of like this weird, like paradoxical, both and kind of the thing, right? For me as a 6, it's like this very much of a self-attachment, but also like leaning into faith of like, there is something bigger than me that is orienting in the world. So how do I show up with all of that? How do I do this thing? And for me, what's been helpful is just to say like, that's what I'm orienting to, is that I don't have to be in control. That's what I don't have to do that. And how am I living my life and kind of moving towards those things? And so I think like to some degree, the holy idea can offer at least a doorway, or at least enough to like grab a hold onto, to start orienting ourselves towards that. One of the guys I met with was an atheist. And he said, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the divine, but I do think I need to be turning away from this man that I'm looking at in the mirror. And I need to be turning my attention to other people. And I was like, that's a great place to start, man. That's orienting to a higher power, So maybe that's how, like I said, maybe that's helpful. That's just something that came to mind for me when you asked that question, Jeff.
Andrew?
It's interesting. Before, Jeff, you asked the question of how do you get oriented to this without spirituality. I was already thinking about what you said, Katie, about how enough people had told you that maybe you should just believe it, even though you don't really believe it. It's sounds a little bit like sort of cognitive behavioral therapy, right? You just have to know that, like intellectually, this is how it is. And maybe like Asher said, maybe that's how you get on the path. Like Jeff, if a person can't get on the path spiritually, maybe, the first step on that path is to just take the cognitive step of saying, well,
Yeah.
enough people have said this about me. It must have some value. There must be some validity in it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's helpful or not, but
No, I
that's
think
what I
actually,
got.
I think that's a worthy move to just say, I'm just going to presuppose this. I'm going to presuppose that I have unsurpassable worth and move and go from there. And I mean, that's in essence what, there's a lot of philosophies that end up doing that. Like, We're going to presuppose that human beings have certain unalienable rights. Just where they come from, it doesn't matter. We all have these rights and value, and other people experience pain, and so I need to care about that. But there's no argument for why. I think that could be a place to go. Anyway, it was a philosophical curiosity. I think I would love to wrap up threes, and Amanda and Delian, I apologize, but we may spend more time. I want to spend time on the fours and really bring out some of the colors there. So I would love to pick up fours next time. But last words on threes, and I suppose we haven't landed the plane. Landing the plane is that what emerges from really embracing one's own value is something like truth, the ability to be honest with oneself. That's the fruit that comes from that. Yeah. Last thoughts on threes and the high side there.
Ooh. Ooh, I don't like it, but I do. Okay. From this place, honesty emerges not as brutal self-disclosure, but as the freedom to be real without fear that reality will disqualify me. Man,
Disqualify is a good word there. Come
on. So here's my last word on three, and it kind of goes with what you said, Jeff. What I wanted to say when you were bringing up all that, I just don't believe it, right? I just don't believe that I'm inherently good. I just don't believe it. The efficiency part of three in me wants to say, well, then you're wasting time, right? Well, then you're wasting time because of course we're all going to feel about our holy idea, but, right? But what about this? But what about this? Of course you are. That's the point. If you didn't feel that way, you wouldn't be that type, right? And I just, well, I'll say what I like about being a three is that I feel like a natural orientation towards, oh, this works, let me keep doing it. And so as soon as I got to the point where I was like, oh, it's better for me to be an honest person and to not lie to myself about all these things. And I have a better life and I have better relationships when this happens. I just like life's better over here on this side of it. You know what I mean? Is that to say that I never fall back into it? Absolutely not. When I'm in a room full of new people, it's the hardest thing in the world to not fall back into the little personality that I carry around with me. But I'll just say that's what I appreciate about being a three is that once it was proven to me that this is better, it got a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's like helpful for anybody else to hear,
It
but
is. Can I build on that? I just want to quote Riso and Hudson on their highest levels of development for the three go alongside what you said. They say that threes let go of the belief that their value is dependent on the positive regard of others, validation, thus freeing them to discover their true identity and their own heart's desire. And their basic desire is also achieved in this move. And this is what really happens at the highest levels of our health when we embrace the holy ideas and they produce the virtue. Your basic desire is achieved in this moment, and they feel valuable and worthwhile in that space, becoming self-accepting, genuine, and benevolent. That seems true to me. Their description of ones on this front is really tragically off, but the threes, they nail it. That's I think a worthy place to land.
Katie or Ingrid, do you have anything last?
Just the one thing that came up for me, it's kind of a funny thing that a touchstone that I use is from years ago, a teenage insult from my then teenage son who, in that exasperated way that teenagers have, just rolling his eyes at me and sort of a real sneering tone, went, "Why do you always have to be so bloody productive?" And
Did he use the word bloody? Because that's awesome. Your kid
absolutely,
gets
yeah, but it's
props,
like that,
extra
but
props.
for whatever reason, that has stayed in my head, and I use it as a touchstone. I don't have to be so bloody productive all the time.
Eric says, "Did we do the gifts of threes?" I think we did a little bit in Jeff's thing. I mean, if anyone else wants to say some nice things about us, feel free. But
Oh, that's true. We
I
did.
feel
We
okay.
landed the plane last time by saying how amazing everybody is. 2s and 3s.
I'll say that I highly value threes because I think primarily because I share a line with them and I don't quite understand them completely, but I draw from them when I, because I share a line with them on the Enneagram. And their sense of production is so wonderful for me as a 9. So I'm so grateful to know the 3s in my life.
Thank you, everybody. Jeff, any last words?
I mean, I could compliment 2s and 3s all day long. 2s and 3s have something I lack, and it's just an engine for pursuing other people at the most valuable levels. That when 2s and 3s are really healthy, hitting that gear where they are moving toward others without excuse, without apology, for the sake of the person in front of them, and doing so often, like when I see it, it strikes me as like a fully benevolent posture is just a gear I lack, and it's just a delight to watch. It's also the case that I think 2s and 3s are silently often magnets for the rest of us. A lot of the types function as magnets in relationships, but so often in my world, my relational life falls apart without the 2s and 3s in my life who intentionally are interested in connecting me with other folks. I'd be a lonely person without the 2s and 3s in my life. And so I'm grateful for y'all. We will hit 4s and 5s next time. And again, apologies for going long, but I hope this was fruitful for everyone. I'm really grateful for your presence and energy and time. That's what I got. You got anything else, Katie?
Thank you, everybody, for being here on a weekend, on a holiday.
Truth.
We can't do this if people don't show up. So we're really, really grateful to all of y'all for being here. Happy Valentine's Day. I love you all.
Ditto.
See you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.